This is A's Cast Live, your comprehensive look at the Athletics.
Leaping at the wall, it's gone! A towering drive into center field by Rooker.
And 29 other MLB clubs.
A judgy at blast. All rise. Here comes the judge.
Swung on, hit high, hit deep to right, away back into the second deck.
Bobby Witt Jr. becomes the first shortstop in Major League history to have two 30-30 seasons.
Shohei Ohtani starts the 50-50 club.
Join us as we take you inside the baseball universe, from humidors to walk-off dingers to Hall of Fame talk. We have you covered. Spend your afternoon with us, only on A's Cast Live. Here's Chris Townsend.
We have an absolute jam-packed show for you today here on A's Cast Live. Chris Townsend alongside Cody Elias, the Commander. Commander, how are you?
I'm good, Towny. You're right. It is a jam-packed show. We did a lot this morning already.
We've done a lot this morning. It's just, a Friday. We want to get as many good, solid, and some big names. It's the Mark Kotsay show is going to be here. One of our all-time favorites. When you think of just Orioles and my era and just great college baseball players, we're starting to get into the College World Series time. Actually, that's way over. I was thinking Little League World Series. Yeah. But Ben McDonald, what he did at LSU, now a commentator, he told us the story here on A's Cast Live about Cal Ripken Jr. calling his pitches from shortstop. But great character. Ben McDonald from the Orioles will be here today. And what else do we have?
Adam Burke from VSiN.
Adam Burke from VSiN. We're going to do a quick thing on wagering, what he looks for going into a game like today between the Athletics and the Orioles, the start of a 3-game set. A's have won 9 of their last 13, with Jacob Lopez just being fantastic yesterday in our nation's capital. Starting pitching was a 2.55 ERA in the last 13 games, so starting pitching is really starting to click with JT again on the mound today. The A's 10-9 since the All-Star break, so they're still right around 500 baseball, which is good. Which is a good thing. We're seeing progress. Offense is still really good. And then we got another special for you today.
Mike McFerran, the A's minor league pitching coordinator, who the team brought over from Wake Forest and their player development lab. He had Nick Kurtz, he had Chase Burns, he had a lot of those guys that were at Wake Forest. Now he's running the minor league pitching coordinator. He's the minor league pitching coordinator, and we talked with him earlier, and fascinating to hear what he's doing with the young guys in the minor leagues.
Yeah, because college baseball is a lot different now, because football money and basketball money is filtered down to everybody, right? We see that with like the College World Series for softball. You see all this money that's gone into the other programs. And Wake Forest is so interesting because they've hooked up with their hospital there at Wake Forest. They had a whole, with people are studying to be orthopedic surgeons and everything. They've done research on players. They have all this data. So they're pretty high tech in college these days. And you look at the SEC and the ACC, they put a lot of money into their college baseball programs. We took him from there and what he's trying to do. And what are you trying to establish as a coordinator from the AAA level all the way down to the kids, right? I mean, because when you say kids, you're bringing kids internationally over who are under 18. Then you're drafting kids right out of high school. So how do you get them up to par and their maturity? And then you got guys who are coming out of college who, don't plan to spend that long in the minor league. So as a pitching coordinator, you got to deal with a lot of different people. So I'm glad we're going to have them on. When do we have to? We're so jam-packed today.
Now.
We have to get to them now.
Yeah.
Who are we starting with?
Mike McFerran.
All right, the new pitching coordinator. He's our hotshot guru in the A's organization. Thank you so much for taking the time today. We truly appreciate it. How are you?
My pleasure, Chris. I'm doing great. How are you?
We're doing good. So you're just down in Arizona with a lot of guys that we just drafted. We drafted a boatload of pitchers, which is good because we need a lot of pitching. How's everything going down in Mesa?
Yeah, it's going excellent. They're onboarding fast, and we've got a really good group of guys. They're smart and they're driven, and I think they're going to fit in right with where we're trying to go and take our philosophy. So it's been a lot of fun getting these guys ready.
It's so interesting now the way it works, because back in the day when we had the June draft, you get drafted, we try and sign you as early as possible. Then we want to ship you out and want you to play. And then now with the draft being so late, and I get it, it's about entertainment, and we're trying to do it with the All-Star break and everything. The philosophy now of draft the guys and maybe not send guys out and play, have them go like to Arizona to work out. Just, obviously you were at Wake Forest, you were in the college game at one point. Just talk about how that philosophy has changed because the date of the draft was pushed back.
Yeah, sure. I like it. I think I understand their thinking. I think if I punched my ticket for as good of a year as I could have, and I wouldn't want to risk getting hurt and, kind of throwing that all away. So a lot of these guys will shut down with that in mind. And I think I think that makes sense for them. So it's really about building them back up. And then kind of at the same time, we get to teach them, how we think about things and how we want to go about things and how they're going to fit into what we're trying to do. So we get to kill a few birds with one stone and, get to know these guys, and they will. I think at least a few of them will go out and start to pitch this year. Specifically, the ones that we think might be more relievers or guys that we just haven't had a chance to build up to the starting role yet. So I think we'll see some of these guys in action here pretty soon.
Jamie Arnold, how special is this kid out of Florida State?
Yeah, off the charts. I mean, as a person first, like it stuck out in our interview at the draft combine, and he was really impressive with just how his mind works. Like I think with the modern players, I think the really good ones understand the information and their information specifically to how they can be successful. And he's a prime example of that. And so he's got all the deceptive qualities that we really like and some of the higher end deceptive qualities that you can find. And he's aware of those and he knows how to use them to his advantage. So I think he's going to fit right in.
Yeah, back in the day, and when I had him on the show up in West Sacramento, I said, back in the day when I was playing, we just called you funky. Now you've got all these things to show us why a guy is funky. But when you just think the way he hides the ball, I'm like, this is your superpower. Now, when you're at Wake Forest, he would have been a freshman your last year at Wake Forest. Did you get to see him?
Yeah, I think he was a sophomore my last year at Wake Forest. Okay. I got to see him pitch, and I think it was right before he really started to bloom. He said he made a lot of those adjustments during his sophomore year, or just after his sophomore year. But what they're doing at Florida State is really special. They got a really good coaching staff, and I think he really bought into what they were doing, and it really, really worked for him.
Are there any names you could throw out from this draft class that you've seen now and you've got your hands on that really just stand out for you?
Yeah, there's quite a few. Like I said, it's a really good group of guys. One is Zane Taylor that we took in the 5th round, and he's the Division I leader in strike percentage from this year. I think he walked 11 guys in 95 innings, something like that. So, he's a good example of how these guys perform, in addition to how, they have tools that we can use to our advantage. But he's going to be fun to watch, I think. And he's someone that we don't necessarily have to teach the basics of execution to. That's his game, which will be a lot of fun. Grant Richardson is coming off of TJ, but he's looked phenomenal coming back. And I think he's someone who, if he was completely healthy and the timing was a little bit better for him, might have went higher than where we got him. So we feel really good about that package, and he's been a great kid. And it kind of goes down the list of guys that we're really excited about. So all the way through, I think this is a really excellent draft class.
So for the fans, they never hear from people like you. And that's what's special about A's Cast is we want to show the entire organization. But when you talk about somebody's a hitting coordinator, somebody's a pitching coordinator, there's the base running guy, there's the catching guy, and you go all through the minor leagues to work with these players. So when you're the pitching coordinator, what is the key that you want to get from the AAA to AA, the message, the way that you want A's pitchers to progress, how you want them to pitch, how you want them to be professionally? What is that like, setting the tone, setting the agenda throughout the minor league system?
Yeah, I think we're really just trying to establish a way of thinking, right? I mean, we really just want to do what works. Like at the end of the day, we want to figure out how do we get these guys to perform at the highest level, and we want to produce for the front office and for our big league team, and give them pieces that they can use or spread out, or trade for the pieces that they need, or of course be successful with our own team. And the best way to do that is just produce as many successful big leaguers as humanly possible. So it's about the system. It's about building something that is educational for both players and coaches on what works for them, that specific person, lean into their strengths. And figure out how to navigate hitters at a really elite level and force them to try to adjust to us. And, there's a lot of people involved in that. There's just so many people who are working really hard at setting that philosophy and trying to have the biggest trickle down effect through the system that we can have. So that's really what it's about.
How important is it to truly understand each individual guy, what makes him tick, and what he needs to do? And for like an example, a guy might have whatever his repertoire of pitches, and you might see something and you might say, you might want to go away from this, and I know you're comfortable with it, because you might want to do something else, what you've been doing, because that's going to be more effective. So there's the part of knowing if a guy can change, if he's willing to change. How important is it to truly get to know the guy?
Yeah, the relationship is huge, and I think you have to gain access to the relationship, in a way that I think we're learning how to do really well, specifically right now with some of the adversity we're going through. That's just part of the process. But I think it starts with information, to be honest with you, and that is a vehicle to build a relationship with these guys. I think they trust information much easier than they trust the person, and I think when you realize you can trust the information that this person is giving you, that helps them trust that person quite a bit more. So today's player is they're a mixture a lot of the time. It doesn't always work this way, but of they're part athlete and they're part data analyst, right? So we need to speak that language, and they need to have the information that's objective for them, and they know which direction to go in and how to believe in themselves and what to believe in themselves. So that helps, just trying to be as objective as possible, but then use the subjective human skills or interaction skills to build a relationship with them and continue on their processes of growth and development. So it's probably a mixture between those two.
Maturity is a big thing too, because you're dealing with athletes that are just different ages. You got guys that are, whether they're coming out of high school, could be an international guy, could be super, super young, versus a guy like, Nick Kurtz really well, right? Nick Kurtz was highly developed coming out. Jacob Wilson, highly developed. So just talking about as a coordinator, especially with the young guys, dealing with college guys versus these guys who are 17, 18, 19 years old, because you'll be having to deal with the international kids. Just sort of from a development standpoint and knowing maturity, talk about the difference.
Yeah, there's a big difference for sure in those few years, and I saw it in college ball. Like, you just don't see successful freshmen very often.
Yeah.
Which is actually what made Nick Kurtz so special. Was this guy was, what he's doing right now at the big league level, as you guys know, and it's a little off topic, but he's done this for forever. I've never seen him not do this before. So he's really just continuing what he's done, and that's what makes guys who are really, really elite special. Is I think you see it consistently, and kind of who they are. And so when you're talking about the maturity of a high school player who's 18 versus someone who's 21 or 22 coming in, those 2 or 3 years in college make a huge difference. So I think it's really most important to understand how much life has this guy been through, and how much does he understand himself, right, as a person and as a player. And the high school guys take longer. They need to bake a little longer, and they need to understand who they are and grow through life a little bit. And a lot of times those college guys are more ready to go and more confident in themselves and more ready to compete. So there's an art to the science for sure.
Well, I have to ask about Nick Kurtz. This kid is special. From the moment he walked on campus, did you guys know that at Wake Forest?
Yeah, absolutely. He showed it immediately. And I remember his freshman year, we played around with where he was going to play a little bit. He was in the outfield. He got hurt in the outfield on a diving play in the fall of his freshman year, and then came back and played first base. And the nickname Spider-Man stuck very, very fast because everything just stuck to his hands, and he was incredible. And he did it on both sides of the ball. And I could tell you many stories about just watching him. But the moment is never too big for him, and he produces with insane power. Just consistently all the time. So yeah, it's definitely been something we've watched for quite a while.
And there's something in makeup in certain guys who want to be great. There's guys who are uber talented, but you got to want to be great. It's got to be part of your DNA. Nick Kurtz has that. Are you able to notice that with certain pitchers? What do you see with certain guys where you go, yep, he's got it, that it factor?
Yeah, I was going to say the it factor. I think that's a very real thing, and I don't know if it's measurable, but I think you can feel it in someone. You just know that the potential is here. We certainly feel that in Gage Jump. I think he has that same kind of factor in him. But with Kurtz, it's for sure. I mean, I would say it's not even that he wants to be great; it's that he has to. It's just some innate thing in there that won't let him be anything less than as high as he can think and as much as he expects from himself. Is at least my read from the outside. And lots of guys do have that, and I think it shows up in performance more often than not.
When I think back when I played in college, how primitive it was in the early 90s compared to what you guys had, like at Wake Forest and all these different baseball programs. Just talk about the money that has filtered down from college football, college basketball, gone into the other sports, just how baseball, college baseball around the country, doesn't matter, ACC, SEC, we used to say Pac-12 out here. Just talk about how college and just really the modern day athlete, as you said, data analysts, just these guys are different. They've been given more information. They have access to more information, and it's changed them as players compared to what we were way back in the day.
Yeah, I love to say, and I try to make this a motto for myself and the teams that I'm a part of as well. But we want to be resourceful more than we need more resources. I think it's more about how we use what we have than about acquiring more and more and more. And I think the really good college programs, and I got lucky to be a part of something that was just so special with that 23 team at Wake. That was just one of the best. And it was really about how we were using our resources, and you could look on the surface level and just see, we had this amazing lab, and we have this data analytics team, and we have, the clubhouse and the locker room, and all of it is shiny. But it was really about how we used information and then how we applied it to the field. And I think that's a good example of how we can try and maximize our resources. So, it is different, but I think the secret sauce is still the same. It's more about the quality of what you do and how smart you work, rather than just, working hard and hope something kind of works out for you. It's a giant puzzle that we're trying to solve on a daily basis. And so I think the smartest players are a lot of times the best players, when you can combine their athleticism with their brains, and, just kind of lead them to, the way through the maze, right? Just how to figure out that puzzle for things. So, I think college players today are coming from being taught with a set of resources and a set of resourcefulness that I think we're seeing for the first time here.
All right, let's end on this. Billy Beane once said, if someone could figure out how to stop Tommy John surgery, they'd be a billionaire. We've had Tommy John on the show to talk about that original surgery. So we're trying to protect the players. Sometimes you have to protect the players from themselves. I've read some stuff about, and we're starting to see guys that are more three quarters. Jacob Lopez was just fabulous again last night for the Athletics, or yesterday morning in DC. There is this belief that the three quarters may protect guys' elbows and shoulders a little more. Is that something we're going to see? Like, do you do any research on just trying to keep these guys healthy?
Yeah, a ton. It's something we think about a lot. I mean, especially with, we're drafting a pitcher in the first round, which hasn't happened in a long time. And I think it shows a lot of faith, and we're really appreciative of that. And, it's our duty to make sure they stay on the field to produce the way that, we're paying them to and what we're investing in. So, it's a heavy thought, with my experience from Wake. I mean, we had so much research capabilities being connected to the hospital and having the pitching lab there. And so, a lot of experience with this, and I could tell you that I think the problem is in the strength of the forearm. I think a lot of times it has to do with, like, how can we make these guys Iron Man and protect their arms from how good these guys have gotten. I really don't think the answer is don't let these guys be as good and just don't let them throw as hard and have as good stuff. I think to compete and to make the money that is incentivizing these guys, they're going to keep doing that, right? And that's the evolution of baseball is going to outpace the physical, and I think that's kind of what's happening. So I think we need to keep going on ways that we can protect the arm from how good these guys have gotten, and I think we're doing a really good job at coordinating their schedules. Bronswell Patrick is in our coordinator group in the minor leagues, and he oversees when guys throw and how many innings and how spaced apart between outings. And he is just masterful at it. And I have really seen, a really positive outcome and benefit in how these guys are used. And I think it's kind of a mixture of those two worlds.
Hey, thank you so much for taking the time today and kind of give us an inside look of what's going on with your job and with all of our pitchers. We appreciate it. And let's do this again soon, and you be well.
My pleasure, Chris. Thank you.
We got to utilize him a lot, especially in the offseason, and just kind of give us the direction of where it's going, because the game of baseball, and you think of biomechanics and science and everything going into our pitchers now, and hitters too. It's just a different world, and it truly is fascinating. From that standpoint to the wagering standpoint, we now have a relationship with VSiN out of Las Vegas. I know there are a lot of you who like to put a little something on games, and we're going to start to learn through VSiN how to wager and the best way to do it in baseball. And it's a lot of fun. And, we got X amount of games left, so we're trying to give you the best possible chance to do well and learn how to do it. Adam Burke from VSiN joined us earlier today to talk about just certain things that you need to look for going into a series. And we talk a lot about the A's and the Orioles. Adam Burke now joins us here from VSiN in Las Vegas. Adam, how are you today?
Good, man. How you doing?
I was thinking about you yesterday when I was out and about, and I saw my Raiders in preseason football against the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, nothing screams like I want some action on preseason football.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's just a race to the news, right? You're very familiar with beat writers in your industry, and it's one of those things where you just they're going to have better access than any other time during the season. So they share what they know, and it leaks out to the betting markets, and you get a bunch of line movement. And none of the line movement worked out on Thursday, but it was still good to have football back.
Ravens, Colts. I was looking at all these games, and they're showing overs and unders and spreads. I'm going, oh my God, preseason football. More importantly, though, we're coming down to the nitty gritty here in Major League Baseball. So we start to see trends that are different, wouldn't you say, from the start of the year to the middle of the year to what we start seeing in the dog days to the very end.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the season is 162 games, but there are a lot of smaller seasons within that season, segments of the schedule where, like, for example, a lot of people like to bet underdogs over the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season because everybody's on relatively equal footing. All the starters are trying to get themselves stretched out and into games. Hitters are all working on their timing. Bullpen guys are trying to get their arms built up for going, 3-4 times a week, stuff like that. So, the really good teams are the really good teams over 162 games. But early in the year, some of the good teams may not be as good. And then you get to this point in the year, and it feels like every game is magnified because of what's going on with the division races and the wild card races. So a lot of people look down on teams that have bad records, but a lot of those teams are still playing. Those are guys that are playing for contracts or playing for better arbitration numbers or playing for playing time. So it's an interesting time of the year where I think people really tend to overvalue favorites and kind of discard the teams that they feel like aren't going to show up when those teams are just as motivated, just as engaged.
Yeah, well, we know the A's are highly motivated right now, and the Orioles are playing better. So when you look at a game tonight like A's versus O's, how do you prepare for this game?
Well, I mean, the first step obviously is to look at the line, right? The first step is to look at the line, see what the odds makers are thinking, see what the betting market is thinking, see if the line has really moved at all. If any of the sharper bettors out there who have great influence in the market have come in one way or the other on this game. And, it looks like, the A's have taken some money in this game. The Orioles were a bit bigger of a favorite at the outset, but the A's now, it's kind of a coin flip type of game at this point in time. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you look at Tomoyuki Sugano, who's pitching for the Orioles today, and he doesn't miss bats. He's just not a guy who has a lot of swing and miss in the arsenal. A lot of guys over in Japan pitch to contact. If you don't, that's typically a fast track ticket to, MLB teams wanting you. But Sugano's a guy that just doesn't really miss a lot of bats. And Oakland's been Sacramento, or the A's, whatever you want to call them. They've been really, really good. I keep calling them the Sacramento A's.
It is what it is. We're all right.
But, but for the A's, I mean, they've been a really good offensive team here in the second half of the season. So when you have a guy who doesn't miss a lot of bats, the A's don't walk a lot. Sugano pitches to a lot of contact. That's why you see some money come in on the A's in a game like this. And also, I mean, personally for me, I like to look at, obviously strikeouts are important, because balls in play are very volatile. They could be a hit, they could be an out, they could be anything. But when you got a guy like JT Ginn, who's a high strikeout guy, over a strikeout per inning, with a high ground ball rate over 50%, those are the guys I want to back, because it's so hard now to manufacture innings and string together hits that I feel like that's the type of guy that I want to go to battle with. And Ginn is one of those guys that I think really looks good for the future for this A's team. So I can understand why the market went the way that it did in this game.
So will you look at just individual games, or will you follow a series? Like, you'll follow the next 3 days. How's it go today, then into tomorrow, and then into Sunday? Do you follow series?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely an opportunity sometimes with series. Now, it can be difficult when you're in a situation like the A's are in tomorrow, where, right now I see their projected starter is Jack Perkins, who's not going to be a guy who's going to work deep in the game for you. So if you run into a situation tonight where the starter is struggling early, runs up that pitch count, bullpen arms have to come in, well, tomorrow's kind of a Johnny Holstaff looking day, right? So, it'd be hard for me to bet into a series when you've got a spot starter, a reliever turn starter, something like that going in one of the games of the series. But if you've got something that's more projectable, where you've got, 3 starting pitchers who you can kind of project a little bit, who are going to work deep into games, that makes it a little bit easier to bet some of those series prices.
And we're going to get to that time of the year where you're going to have a lot of, let's just say, not starts that don't go very many innings, right? You're going to have guys coming up, guys are going to be on pitch limits. So how do you factor that in, and how much are you looking at the bullpens?
So for bullpens, I mean, the biggest thing to me is who's available, who's rested. If the closer and the high leverage setup guys have worked, 3 of the last 4 days, something like that, I'm far less likely to bet a full game on that team. I would look more towards the first 5 or something of that nature. So to me, it's just availability. That's the most important thing. And then you start digging a little bit deeper into, okay, is this a bullpen that gets a lot of strikeouts? Is this a bullpen that gives up a lot of contact? Is this a bullpen that has walk rate issues? And then kind of pair that to the lineup that they're facing and also the ballpark that they're pitching in, because if you've got a homer prone bullpen and all of a sudden you find yourself at Coors or Great American Ballpark or, Dodger Stadium on a hot night, these places where the ball can really carry, that becomes a little bit more of a concern for me. So first and foremost, who's out there, who's rested, who's available, and then you start digging into kind of the characteristics of the bullpen versus the characteristics of the lineup that they're facing.
Yeah, Selfie, it's a lot of research has to go in. You got to see who's been pitching, who's been throwing, who's getting. I mean, you don't know who's available. We've learned that for years over from our managers. Like, you may think a guy's available, but he may not. But you got to come up with your possible best guess. When you talk about wagering on the first 5 innings, the other day the stat came up at the A's at that time, 85 runs in the first inning, the most in Major League Baseball. How much do you look at the way offenses go the first couple innings?
Yeah, I think you have to, right? I mean, the game is so predicated now on, second and third time through the order penalties, and a lot of managers kind of manage in that way, right? They'll make sure that a guy doesn't face the middle of the order for a third time. But what if you do have a fast starting offense like the A's have been? And furthermore, I mean, the A's pitchers have struggled. A lot of the starters have struggled. Jeffrey Springs was pretty bad at this early on in the season. Luis Severino, maybe the mound concerns in Sacramento are very real. Maybe that is something that has negatively impacted both the home team and the road team. So that's definitely something that you want to take an extended look at. Also, in an average season, I want to say it's an 82% win rate for teams that were ahead after the 5th inning. When the starters are kind of getting out there, the bullpens are sort of, getting into their specialized roles, all of that. So if you can score early, then that's something that really benefits you the rest of the way. So yeah, the teams that can start fast are very, very important to keep an eye on.
All right, it's becoming a crucial part of the year as football starting up. You're going to have college football, NFL football, Major League Baseball coming down the stretch into the postseason. What's the best way for people to sign up at VSiN?
Yeah, so right now we're running a $9.99 introductory offer special. That's the price for your first month at vsin.com/subscribe. And you mentioned college football. We just dropped our college football betting guide, 186 pages for the upcoming season on this past Tuesday. Our NFL guide came out last month. We'll do another NFL guide after the preseason here in light of injuries, line moves, all those kinds of things. But It's not just baseball. It's not just football. We cover basketball, hockey, UFC, NASCAR, golf, everything that's out there. So vsin.com/subscribe, the best way to check it all out.
Great stuff. We'll talk to you next week.
Have a good one, Chris.
2025 All-Star Brent Rooker joined Towny on A's Cast Live to reflect on becoming an All-Star for the second time in 3 years.
And I walked in that locker room in Seattle and saw my jersey and saw the rest of the jerseys that were there. And, it's kind of like one of these things doesn't belong here. And that's probably mine. I didn't feel like I was the same caliber of player as the rest of the guys in that clubhouse. So to be able to do it again 2 years later, just continues to help me build confidence and know that I can go out there day in, day out and compete at a pretty high level.
You can watch the full interview at youtube.com/athletics or listen at athletics.com/A'sCast.
Looking to stay up to date on all things A's? Head over to athletics.com/A'sCast. That's athletics.com/A'sCast to listen to A's baseball in full 24/7 coverage of the A's, only on A's Cast. With a single click, you can stream great shows, live pre- and post-game coverage, and of course, all the great action of the A's this season. Head to athletics.com/A'sCast today.
For just $25, fans can sit in the general admission outfield grass for all regular season home games. Tickets for that day's game will open up daily at 9 a.m. for purchase at athletics.com/lawn. Sign up to receive A's alerts to receive a text the first morning of each home series as a reminder. For more information, visit athletics.com/lawn. A's All-Star Jacob Wilson joined Towny on A's Cast Live to talk about being named the starting shortstop for the American League in this year's All-Star game in Atlanta.
Can't even describe it. They're just, it's everything you've ever wanted as a baseball player, to be able to hear those words and a countless amount of thank yous that go out to the teammates, coaches, the people that you have in your corner on a daily basis. And it was a crazy day for me, and super grateful, super thankful for this year so far, and just being able to really excited to take it in the second half.
You can watch the full interview at youtube.com/athletics or listen at athletics.com/A'sCast.
When it comes to knocking it out of the park, nobody beats Folsom Lake Ford. Folsom Lake Ford is a 7-time Triple Crown Award winner, Ford Motor Company's highest honor, for being the best in customer satisfaction in sales, service, and finance. Step up to the plate for our biggest selection of new Ford models, including the legendary F-150, on sale now. Shop Folsom Lake Ford, your truck headquarters in the Folsom Auto Mall. FolsomLakeFord.com.
That ball is out of here.
Streaming from NBC Sports, A's Cast Live continues with Chris Townsend.
Well, he is one of our favorites. It is great to have Ben McDonald back on the program. You remember his career as a pitcher, now a broadcaster with the Orioles, college baseball great at Louisiana State University, LSU Golden Spikes Award winner. Big Ben, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you today?
I am great. Are you back home in Louisiana?
I am. I'm back home in Louisiana. I came back and flew in from Philly when the Orioles finished up their road trip in Philly. I'm actually flying out to California in a couple of days. My daughter is getting married out in California on Tuesday, so I'm headed that way in a couple of days.
Wait. How'd she get out of Louisiana and get to California?
Man, she's always wanted to take off, and she started working in Birmingham. She went to school up at NYU in New York for a while. She always wanted to get away from Denham Springs, Louisiana, and take off, and she did that, and then got another job out in California and been living out in West Hollywood for, 3 or 4 years now. Met her fiance out there, and so, of course, they met out there, so they get married out there, so we're about to hop on a plane and head that way in a couple of days.
Well, congratulations. The cycle of life. Things are changing. What a great moment for your family. One thing that we're going to talk about today, and we're going to do it on our pregame show on NBC here in a little bit, is, rebuilds, you just never know. Because when you looked at when Mike Elias came over from the Houston Astros and rebuilt this thing, and it was going so good, And then all of a sudden now we look at where the Orioles are. How surprising are you that it went from winning 100 games and, can the Orioles make that next step to win a World Series and now back to where they are? Was that surprising because you've been living it?
Oh, yeah. Look, this year has been a huge disappointment. There's no other way to say it. I think you put the Orioles and probably the Braves in that category as two of the most disappointing teams in baseball this year. Baseball is a funny game, man. It really is. And as you talk about, Orioles had a lot of success the last 3 years. Matter of fact, the last 2 years going this year, nobody in the American League had won more games than what the Orioles had won. And it looked good going into this year, but injuries aren't an excuse, but they are a fact. And the Orioles have been the most beat-up team in baseball this year, and it started on the hitting side of things. And this lineup will not play one game this year out of 162 games. They will not be whole, not one game this year. That's kind of where it started. The pitching staff has been beat up. Grayson Rodriguez was supposed to be our ace this year. He's not even going to pitch one ball this year at all, and he's going to have a elbow surgery. It's not anything serious, thank gosh. He's supposed to be ready for next year, but he's got like a bone spur or something in his elbow that's got to come out. He tried to rehab it, just wasn't working, whatever. Eflin's been on the IL 3 different times now, and so it's kind of been a perfect storm in a lot of ways, where a lot of injuries, and it's just been a baseball thing, man. I know it's not an excuse, but it is. Some days, some years you play well, and this year stacked up to be a good year going in. I think there was a lot of enthusiasm. And look, I think the Orioles have been a top 5 offense the last 2 years. I felt like a lot of people thought the Orioles were going to score some runs this year. We thought that the starting pitching would probably be average. It felt like the bullpen would be slightly above average going in, and I felt like we were going to be in the hunt this time of the year. When the trade deadline come, Mike Elias would go out and add what he needed to kind of get the Orioles over the top. And obviously that didn't happen. The Orioles ended up being sellers at the trade deadline this year, which, look, I hate it for the guys that got traded away. But I also see Mike Elias' side of this. And why would you let certain free agents get the free agency on you and not get anything for them if you're not going to be in the race? And the Orioles just aren't in the race right now. And so you hate to see the team get torn down in some ways. But it's what I call fringe players. It wasn't your core. It wasn't that young nucleus of Rutschman and Henderson and Westberg and Holiday. It wasn't that group. It was fringe players that were really good ball players. But bottom line is the Orioles have had a disappointing year. They are playing better as of late since Tony Mancelino has taken over. They are playing a little bit above 500 ball right now. But it's going to be a tough road, especially with the bullpen down the stretch, because it's a brand new bullpen. There's only 2 guys in that bullpen right now that began the season with the Orioles. So it's going to be like a box of chocolates down there with a lot of kids coming up from AAA. And so some nights are going to be good and some nights are going to be a struggle for sure. But a lot of work to do for Mike Elias this offseason. I think they had a wonderful draft this year. I thought the draft was outstanding. They got some real prospects back for some of the guys they traded. Now there's work to be done this offseason. And, listening to the articles and just kind of paying attention, I feel like this new ownership group is very driven to bounce back next year and be a force. Time will tell on that with the offseason.
Well, the good news is you mentioned that the core group of still highly skilled, great future young core, that's still there to build on.
Yes, and that's the important thing about it. I mean, if you look around the diamond, Jackson Holliday's 21 years old. Gunnar Henderson just turned 24. Westberg's 25. Cowser's 25. You're going to see Samuel Basayo probably in about 2 weeks. One of the top prospects in baseball is just tearing it up in AAA right now. He's just a 21-year-old catcher down there right now with a lot of power. He's got 22 home runs. Dylan Beavers is a kid that came out of college, is 23 years old, and having a monster season. So you're going to get a glimpse of the future coming up, probably in about 2 weeks. And then, of course, you got Kyle Bradish coming back, who pitched like a real number one a couple years ago. He's, I think, third rehab start might be tonight. Tyler Wells is going to be back in the month of September. So you're going to kind of get a glimpse of the future in some ways, and even a younger nucleus. And you're going to see some veteran guys like Bradish come back and get, 4 or 5 starts in and try to get his momentum going, and Tyler Wells get their momentum going for next year too. So this is not going to be a rebuild. It's going to be a reboot is what it's going to be. There, we went through the rebuild years ago, and that was tough to go through, but you got a young core that's a very talented young core that hasn't always played like it's been capable of playing. But again, it's the second youngest core. This is the second youngest roster in all of Major League Baseball. And so there's not a guys with a ton of reps out there right now, and so it's a team that's learning in a lot of ways. But this is, in my opinion, the window for the Orioles to win. With this group that they have, you got 2 more years of Adley Rutschman, you got 3 more years of Gunnar Henderson. This is the window for the Orioles. And so I'm hoping that Mike Elias and ownership is going to go out this offseason and really fill in the holes with some quality guys and give this team enough to get to the playoffs next year and hopefully make that kind of run.
All right, a lot of young players in both these clubhouses. Let's just say the Orioles or the Athletics brought you in today to talk to these guys in the clubhouse. 45 games left for the A's. I'm not sure exactly for the Orioles, but right around the same. What advice for this last basically almost 2 months would you give to the young players about finishing strong?
Oh, good question. I mean, I always say this, man. There's always something to play for. And I know a lot of times, you feel like you're out of the race and there's nothing to play for. That's the furthest thing from the truth. If you get on the inside, you look on the inside, there's always something to play for. And so players are playing for contracts, right? Players are playing for momentum and for pride more than anything. And I was on some teams that weren't very good in my career, but every time I went to the mound and felt like I wanted to go out and compete and I wanted to beat that team. And also you got a chance to play spoiler, whether you're Oakland or you're the Orioles. You're going to go up against some teams that's going to be borderline playoff teams. You get a chance to knock those guys out if you can't be. And so I would still take it the same. Learn every time you go out, whether you're playing or you're not. You're learning and you're trying to figure out the game of baseball and do it wide open, man, because there's always something to play for is what I would tell them. Because the only way if you're a young player that you can learn is experience. People can tell you, well, you got to do this, and this is going to happen. And that's great to hear those things from veteran players or even managers and coaches. But for me, and I know for a lot of young players, you don't really know it until you experience those things for yourself. And that's how you begin to grow as a player. So it's a wonder. I love where Oakland is right now. I knew Kurtz in college, got to see him in college. Of course, Brent Rooker, I saw him in college too, man. Those are 2 studs. And I've always loved those 2 kids. And I've been knowing Rooker for a long time. But Oakland's certainly an upbeat team to me that seems to be moving in the right direction like the Orioles are as well. Obviously, been a little bit more disappointing for the Orioles this year because they were supposed to, where in years past they weren't. And so that's been a disappointing thing. But I think Oakland's headed in the right direction. I certainly think the Baltimore Orioles are certainly, after a disappointing year this year, are certainly going to bounce back next year.
All right. No Nick Saban. I know Kirby Smart's tough at Georgia. How's our LSU Tigers going to do in the SEC this year?
A lot of pressure on Coach, man. There's a lot of expectations this year. There's no doubt about that. And I feel like it's LSU's time. They got a veteran quarterback that's been around a little bit. The defense is supposed to be much improved. And LSU's getting a lot of play right now. There's a lot of speaking of expectations, when you start talking about money and NIL and pressure to win and perform, you got a coach that's on a 10-year contract making $100 million. It's time for LSU to make a little bit of noise because they've been okay the last couple of years, but it's time for them to certainly make the next step this year.
I can't even imagine what you would have made in nil money back in the day at LSU.
I'd like to back up a few years, but unfortunately we can't do that.
You might have not wanted to come to play Major League Baseball. That might have been a pay cut for you back then.
That's right. Yeah, it certainly changed everything, man. And look, in some cases, I don't know if it's changed it for the better either, but it certainly changed things. And it's just where we are right now. But if you're not going to play the NIL game, man, as a coach, as a program, you're going to get left behind. I can just tell you that.
Well, it's your day off. It means a lot that you come on. We love having you on. We truly appreciate it. Congratulations with the daughter's wedding. Have a good time out here in California, and we'll talk to you soon. You be well.
I appreciate it. Always my pleasure to join you guys. Take care of yourself.
The great Ben McDonald here, right here on A's Cast Live. That guy was a star in college. Like when I was growing up, watching ESPN, then, of course, being drafted number 1, playing for the Orioles, Ben McDonald was a stud. So how much time we got? I know we are so up against the clock today.
We have like a little under 3 minutes because Kotsay's 11:20.
Can you do your deal in less?
Yes.
Can we put you on the clock?
Yes.
Because we're trying to stay on the clock for 650 KSTE in Sacramento today. We're trying to be good partners.
Okay, so what do you want me to do real quick?
All right. Why A's Cast Live's important. We know that, but just not A's Cast Live. What we're doing is important. And there's another example as we've grown. Here's another example why. Talk about ESPN is going away from baseball. They're divesting in baseball, and they're investing in the WWE.
Yeah, so WWE and ESPN now have an agreement where all of WWE's PLEs, their premium live events, you used to know them as pay-per-views, are now going to be on ESPN's new streaming platform that they're launching. I think it's in the next month or so, which is going to be $30 a month or $29.99. But the nice thing about it is if you have YouTube TV or Xfinity, DirecTV, any of those the providers, you don't have to pay extra to get WWE's premium live events, which are currently streaming on Peacock. So if you want to watch WrestleMania, you go to Peacock, or Survivor Series, which I'm going to in a couple months in San Diego Petco, or SummerSlam that was just all on Peacock. It'll now be on ESPN. SmackDown or Raw will stay on, Raw will be on Netflix, which they're paying $5 billion to WWE for over 10 years. So they got money there, and then SmackDown will stay on USA. So it's a good deal. Like they're like doubling, and it's like 2.5 times what they're getting more from ESPN from they were for Peacock to stream these events. So it's a good deal for Nick Khan, Triple H, and the WWE because it's putting them more mainstream than they were before. So it's a really good deal, in my opinion, for them to be on ESPN's platform. And plus TKO with UFC, it makes sense, which is the company that owns WWE now.
I believe everything you just said.
Thank you.
It's kind of like I believe everything I see on Twitter and everything I read on the internet. Whatever Cody just said, I believe in all of it. But the reason why I wanted to bring it up,
we got 20 seconds,
was they're investing in wrestling and divesting in baseball. So platforms like this, shows like this are important because we're going to be the people who bring, like when we go to the winter meetings in Orlando and we have all the insiders and everybody, it's places like this that you can still get baseball on a daily basis because we don't know what the future is going to look like. How are you going to watch games? Who's going to carry all the baseball content? We will be here for you.
Absolutely.
Not sure how it will go. And then, of course, when we go to Vegas, it's just going to be bigger and better.
Yeah, well, we're going to cram 4 interviews into an hour show. This is pretty impressive.
We should see what we do at the winter meeting.
Yeah.
Well, usually our show used to be longer. It's just I'm doing 4 shows a day. So this one, the 2 TV, and then the caller show, it just became a lot to do a full talk show like we used to. We used to do 3 hours, 2 hours. It's just my voice can only take so much.
I understand.
So we'll try and get back into that in the offseason a little bit more. You ready for the Mark Kotsay show? Here is the skipper. Time now for the Mark Kotsay show, brought to you by Folsom Lake Ford, as the ball club has left our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and now it's going to be a 3-game set in Baltimore. Kots, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Towny. We had a decent little bus ride.
Yeah.
Last night, I think it was 35 miles. It took 2 hours, but hey, that's DC traffic, I guess, trying to get to Baltimore. There was a lot going on in the city last night. The Ravens played the Colts, so city in Baltimore was happening place last night.
All righty, let's talk about the hot streak your ball club's on right now. You've won 9 of your last 13, but the real thing that I want to get into today, your starters have a 2.55 ERA during that time, which is absolutely fantastic. Talk about the efforts and the production you're getting from your starters right now.
Well, I mean, obviously, results they stem from starting pitching, right? So, I mean, it's no surprise that the starters have that type of ERA and that the wins and losses have been pretty consistent. I think, it all starts with starting pitching, and those guys that are taking the ball every 5th day, they set the tone. And, Severino's been really good over the last 4 or 5. And I think that helps when you've got your ace out there, throwing the ball really well. And obviously Springs has thrown the ball really well for a long period of time. And he continues to go out there and give us, quality innings, quality starts. It'll be interesting to see. This is a big series for our starters. You've got JT Ginn going out, who hasn't gone out and gone 6 innings. You've got Jack Perkins, who's still building, right? And so is JT, in fairness. I think both these guys, limited pitch counts. So it's a big series to see, progress. And that's really what we want to see out of these younger starters.
With more of the veteran guys at this time of the year, especially the way they're throwing the baseball, where you allow them to go a little longer right now at this time of the year versus going to the bullpen if they're going well and they're hot?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, obviously they've, they've earned that opportunity. I mean, yesterday with Jacob, Jacob's a big, strong, physical kid, and so he's in my assessment, he can handle that workload and recover. There's a physicality to throwing 115 pitches and having 4 days off and coming back and throwing another 100 possibly. So but at this point in the season, the guys that have been out there consistently, if you're looking at Spring, Severino, and Lopez, really now, there's a understanding of what they look like when they're doing well, how much they have left in the tank, whether I can push them or whether or not they're done, and that obviously it helps at this point in the season.
Yes, you mentioned Severino's been throwing the ball great, which is when your lead dog is getting it going, it really helps everybody else out. But I think about Jeffrey Springs this year because the big thing for him, yes, you want to put up great numbers, but it's health. He's never really been healthy in his career. He's really had 1 year as a starter. The last 2 years have basically been rehab years for him. Just talk about how big it's been for him to be healthy and take the ball every 5 days. And looks like he's going to have a chance to give you 30 starts.
Yeah, I mean, the offseason was spent trying to identify a starting pitcher that we could possibly trade for that had experience in the big leagues, but yet was affordable and, had success in the big leagues. And you described it very well that in 22, he was a dominant starter. In 23, 24, he went through some injuries. And to see him pitching well now, to see him really having success in 25 and racking up innings and racking up starts, that says a lot about the baseball ops group, really, that identified this starter and brought him in here via trade. And Jacob Lopez was a part of that trade. So, we sent 3 prospects off, Joe Boyle and 2 minor league prospects. I believe that's right. I know Boyle was the centerpiece, but we've got 2 contributing major league starters that have really helped our success to this point in the season.
Yeah, looking back, at least for this year, the trade has been absolutely dynamite for the Athletics. Tyler Soderstrom, let's get into some offense. He lights the world on fire at the very beginning. And then it's like any other year, there's going to be hot stretches for him. There's going to be stretches that are not so hot. And at the trading deadline, his name was being brought up. I went, that's just crazy. He's just 23 years old. It's just his first year in the big leagues. And I think by the end of the year, when you look at the numbers, you're going to be like, wow. Just talk about the growth you've seen from him, also from the standpoint of having him be a catcher who goes to first and now out in left field.
Yeah, no, I don't know where you heard the rumors of Tyler's name being thrown out, because I didn't hear it. And I'm thankful that I didn't hear it, because I would have lost my Tyler Soderstrom's a part of this group, and he's a young man that's maturing very nicely, not just from the baseball side, but from the person side, right? And that says a lot about Tyler. I've had him since his first day, and I have grown to like him. I mean, I loved him at the beginning. I've grown to love him even more now. And any season is going to have its ups and downs, its ebbs and flows. You're never going to, come out and in April hit 390 and continue that. We've seen that with everyone in the league. Aaron Judge would be the best example to use of what he's going through. Yeah, he's dealing with some injuries, but the season you deal with injuries, you play through injuries. And Tyler's had some, issues, banged up, but he still continues to go out and play, and you get through and you grind. And that's part of the process. So I really like what Tyler's done. And like you said, there's so much value to what he offers in terms of, he's an emergency third catcher. He could go back there if we need him be. He's jumped out to left field and, made a great catch yesterday, but he's been, to me, slightly above average left fielder, and he's never played there before. And at first base, he was really solid. Probably above average. And there's a thought that maybe, hey, take an off season, go learn third base. Who knows? But he's young, he's athletic, he's lean, he's strong. And you're right, Towny, he's going to put up probably 25 and get close to 30 homers if he continues to swing the bat the way he has over the last, couple days.
Yeah, and over 80 RBIs, maybe 85. I mean, that's a fantastic year. And you asked him to change defensive positions, and he did it without. And he's not a left fielder, right? The outfield was never his thing, so it tells you a lot about the character of the young man. Speaking of first base, Nick Kurtz, are we at a point to where you just don't say anything? You just go do what you do? How do you handle Nick Kurtz? Because every day he does something, the on-base streak, I mean, he doesn't look like a rookie. He doesn't handle himself like a rookie. He doesn't play like a rookie. How do you deal with him on a daily basis?
Yeah, I really don't deal with him. I mean, it's as simple as that. How you doing, Nick? Great. Awesome. Keep going, kids.
You're in the lineup.
I mean, there was a point there, yeah, when, he initially first came up and we were hitting him lower in the lineup and he was striking out. And, I just told him, be patient. You're going to learn this. You're going to grow. You're going to have some tough times at points in this season, but you'll get through it. And we saw him get through it, and now we're seeing him at his best. There's hopefully he continues to be at his best the rest of the season. But again, there's not much to say to Nick Kurtz right now other than, hey, are you feeling good and are you healthy to get out there?
And you're hitting number 2, and go get him, big boy.
There's a thought of leading him off today. I mean, we've done some things with the leadoff spot.
I've thought about that, and people laughed at me. I'm like, why? Hey, if you can have Schwarber hit leadoff, why not have Nick Kurtz?
No, Nick's an on-base guy. He takes pitches. He takes walks. So it's not something that wasn't thought about, talked about. But we've got an opportunity here to possibly utilize him in that role as we go forward.
Let's end on this. It's always special when your catcher does really well offensively, because we know how much the catcher does, like as a captain with the pitching staff and everything that he has to do and all the studying that goes with it. There's just something about the way Shea Langeliers looks like now, how he looks right now. He looks thinner. He looks more athletic. The way he's swinging the bat. Ever since he came off the IL, he's been absolutely red hot. Just talk about how you're watching a player really, he's jumping into his prime. These are going to be the best years of Shea Langeliers.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. And when Shea, replaced Murph, and I loved Murph. I mean, I was a huge Sean Murphy fan. But I immediately said from watching Shea that Shea's got an opportunity to be better than Murph. And he's definitely probably got an opportunity to hit for better average than Murph. Murph is a, power guy, a great receiver. I said Shea's receiving would get better. It has. He's a +1 in framing right now. He's come a long way. He works his tail off. There's no one that I'd rather, have back there for a long time than Shea Langeliers, and especially because the most famous person in his phone is me. So why wouldn't I love the guy?
Is that still like one of those where you go, you got to get better than that? No offense, Kotz, but you got to get Mark Kotsay can't be the famous guy in your phone.
Yeah, he's gonna meet much more famous people than me for sure, bro. Oh man, yeah. I'm sure I'll have an off season that he replaces me in that category for sure.
All right, great stuff. Have a good series in Baltimore, and we'll see you back at the ballpark in West Sacramento. The Mark Kotsay Show brought to you by Folsom Lake Ford.
The A's YouTube page is your go-to destination for A's video content. Get access to great highlights, exclusive behind-the-scenes content, classic games, A's Cast Live, and more. Visit youtube.com/athletics.
This has been a presentation of The Athletics.